At this time, we'll call to order the regular meeting of Board of Public Works, August 12th, 2024. Betty, roll please.
Mayor Boyd.
I'm here.
Alderperson Carpenter.
Here.
Alderperson Estercon is excused. Alderperson Hanson.
Here.
Alderperson Ledvina.
Here.
Thank you very much. Next up, public comment upon matters not on the agenda. Comments made during the public comment period shall pertain only to matters under the jurisdiction of the Board of Public Works. Any public comment upon matters not on the agenda, if so, just state your name, either in person or virtually. For the second time, any public comment upon matters not on the agenda. And then for the third and final time, any public comment upon matters not on the agenda. Very good. Next up, the items. Item 1, approval of the July 8th, 2024 Board of Public Works meeting minutes. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by me, seconded by Alderperson Hanson. Any discussion or comments? Seeing there are none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Item 2, consideration and possible action on award of contract 2420 open pick hole manhole replacement. Eric?
Yeah, so this is a project we bid to replace some of the open pick sanitary manholes that we have in the city, and put closed pick holes on them, which is the standard now, and gasketed to reduce inflow and infiltration. The low bid is DeGroot at $68,824.80. And the amount allocated from the capital improvement budget is $70,000 from the sewage utility. So we're recommending award to DeGroot in the amount of $68,824.80.
Wow, wide base bids. Incredible. 68 to 179. Questions, comments, motion?
Make a motion to approve the bid from DeGroot.
I'll second.
Motion by Alderperson Hanson, seconded by Alderperson Ledvin. Discussion or comments? Alderperson Carpenter.
Yes, Eric, how many does this cover our open pick, or is this 1/4, 1/3, or?
Well, it's not a third, but you can see the number that we have in there. You're looking at 26 structures.
Yep.
Some of them in the asphalt, a couple that'll deal with some curb, and some in terrace restoration. So what we did was we took a look around, and we tried to pick the worst ones that seem to be getting more I&I. You know, if it's a manhole in the center of the road, maybe it's not as much of a priority as those that are closer to the curb line where you get a lot of water flowing in the gutter.
Okay, well, I didn't see no map or pick thing, so that's.
No, all you could go on is the quantity in that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Alderperson Hanson.
Eric, looks like they're also going to be responsible for any asphalt patches around the manhole.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Good with that? Other questions or comments? All right, seeing there are no more, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 3, discussion on full sanitary lateral replacement program. Eric?
Yeah, so the purpose for this is to get input from the board on the potential of carrying forward the full sanitary lateral replacement program. If you recall, we've been investigating options for incorporating a full lateral relay in the city to address inflow and infiltration in the sewer system. And earlier this year, we approved a pilot program to test it under projects 2401 and 2402, and do so as a voluntary project. And it was to be done via pipe burst, and we will get a new main, a new sanitary lateral pipe, plastic, from the main all the way into the foundation of the house. So just to give you a real quick background, I know you've heard this a lot already, but you know the city does have a significant I&I problem. We estimate that we have around 100 miles of gravity sewers and 2 lift stations. Studies have estimated that there are approximately the same number of miles of private sewers and laterals as there are main. Now, for our mains, we go through and do cleaning, televising, reconstructing, lining, and sealing of leaks. On private laterals, that's the responsibility of the private property owner. So, you know, there's an opportunity for a significant amount of inflow to occur on those systems in addition to ours. As I mentioned at the beginning, in March 11th, 2024, we did a voluntary test program this year for full lateral. And then also to give you a step back, previously on city jobs, we have been relaying sanitary laterals from the main to the property line with PVC in areas where we're doing water main and water service work, in areas that, and it is not currently PVC. So we do this through open cut construction, meaning we dig down, excavate to the back of the sidewalk, and then reconnect up. But that doesn't take care of the pipe, the lateral from the edge of the right-of-way into the property. Additionally, the open cut construction is more expensive than pipe bursting. So we had taken a look at costs, and Chase put some numbers together based on the 2401, and we were estimating it was going to cost around an extra $1,000 per property to offer the full lateral relay versus just the open cut. And again, the benefit here is we're getting twice as much PVC of the lateral for all practical purposes versus the open cut construction. We wanted to provide you some information of the response we had under 2401 and 2402, and that information is in your packet. We had 53 homes under 2401 and 31 homes under 2402 that are scheduled to have new laterals replaced to the right-of-way. For 2401, we had 36 of the 53 volunteer for the program, or 68%. And under 2401, we had, 2402, we had 10 of the 31 for 32% of the property owners volunteering. And we really just started getting into that this week. We did a couple today, things went well under 2401. So now we'd like to discuss, get the board's feeling on, is this something we want to pursue and also potentially expand? Because there are more and more municipalities offering this. The driver for us is when we're able to incorporate it into one of our projects, it costs us a little bit more. However, we do get full plastic then from the main all the way into the house, which we feel is a benefit for I&I reduction. So staff would like to, one thing we would be interested in is carrying forward the program that we currently have into 2025, which is on projects that we're going to be relaying the sanitary laterals through open cut construction. We offer the option for them to do on a voluntary basis the pipe bursting option instead, and then that would be funded 100% like 2024. Other municipalities in the U.S., not necessarily around here, although NENA does have a similar program addressing what happens when a lateral is repaired outside of a project. So recently, we have property owners that have lateral issues, and you all get contacted from them periodically. Some property owners have taken the initiative on their own when they're replacing that lateral to take advantage of pipe bursting and relay it from the main all the way to the house. We would like to consider, or at least discuss with the board and see how the board feels, of a potential 50% funding match if a property owner does pipe bursting from the main to the property on their own outside of a city project. Additionally, then one thing we could consider is taking care of the asphalt repairs, because if you remember, as part of pipe bursting, you have an excavation in the basement where we break out the basement foundation. We tell people 3 feet on average. The couple today have been about 18 inches, so a little smaller. And then there's also an excavation in the road at the main, wherever the main is. If the main's in the grass, then it's in the grass. But that's where they put their machine to pull the cable with the pipe burst head and the plastic. So then there's an excavation. So that's a possibility that could be included as a city cost, and the city would take care of it. So that's one consideration. In addition to that, there is newer technologies coming out on the lining side for laterals. If you remember, we line mains all the time in the city. In fact, we line 9,000 to 10,000 linear feet, 1.5 miles of sewer mains every year. Well, this is starting to become a more common option for laterals and is another cost-effective solution versus pipe bursting. And basically, they would line from the main to the into the basement, and they do the work usually from in the basement or right around the foundation, so sometimes they don't even have to dig in the road for that. But that would be another thing that we could consider for a 50-50 match to encourage property owners to not only take care of the small issue, but to take care of the entire lateral in one shot. Like I mentioned, Nina does have a similar program where they do a 50-50 match. And there are other municipalities through the nation that are doing it, although it's not super common. For this, if this type of a program would be enacted, I would say, we consider something like $100,000 in match funds a year in 2025 or any given calendar year. And then first come, first serve. And if a person misses out, they either have to take care of it on their own or they wait until the next year. Because there are people that have problems with roots and don't necessarily have to do something immediately, can wait and then get it fixed. But again, that being said, if they have roots, that means there is inflow and infiltration occurring because that's the roots got in there because of leaking and things like that. So those are a couple things. So just to frame up, we'd be interested in continuing our current program that we have with doing 100% if the property owner wants to do it as part of our project, and then we would do it as part of our work, and then fund it through our sewage account with our project. And then the other addition would be two different forks, but a 50% match if they pipe burst or a 50% match if they line it all the way through. And again, we'd have to take a look at that from a kind of like how we run our foundation drain disconnection program where a person does it, we have to inspect the work, post-televising, pre-televising, and then they submit for a reimbursement. So I guess those were our thoughts, and this is just a discussion item. If the board is not interested, we wouldn't, we could stop the discussion. If the board is interested, we could kind of formalize something as more of a policy and bring it back for action in the future.
Thank you. I know for one, I'm very interested. I'm pretty heartened by the numbers. I mean, that's pretty impressive. I know the one project, you're still waiting to get more information, and the 31%, whatever, will go up. I'm also for expanding it outside the city projects and allowing that with 50%. I think this is really money well spent as we go forward. This is a real impressive success story. I would even say that we do the mayor's corner thing with videos and stuff like that. This is something we should do. I wouldn't bump you, Jonathan, for Historical
I'm still
Society.
waiting.
You're up next. You're up next. But this is something that it's so popular, and we should get it out there and get out in front of this so people really understand what this is. So you could be up again. Or
Great.
Chase, whoever you want, or both.
Engineers love talking in front of cameras. Not really.
No, you did really well last time. No, personally, myself, I think this is incredible. This is a real success that we have going for De Pere, getting in front of I&I. Alderperson Carpenter.
So on the lining of the laterals, do you have any costs? Have you heard anything? I mean, I know it's new out there. Is it kind of like the cost of the pipe bursting?
My understanding that's a very fair question, and we can do research on that.
And then my next question is, because then I'll just refer to like the 600 block of Butler Street, where you redid it. So then you brought new lateral up to the property line. So that would be a place, instead of going the other way, is to do the lining, because you already put a plastic in there.
Yes.
Where my feasibility thinking is, you'd be better off lining those that you already extended into these people in some projects already. Am I correct?
You are correct. In fact, the contractor that's doing the work out today, I was asking them because they talked about they're going to be doing sewer lining. I talked about that specific scenario as, we've got a property where we relayed the lateral up to the right of way. I said, can you line from the house into that new PVC and not have to do any open cutting or just cut it, underground without open cut? And he said, yeah, that's what we do.
And that's what that's what I would
So
like to see
that would
going
definitely be an
forward.
option where it would kind of close that loop out where we did part of it. Now we could just finish the deal.
Yes, that's what I was trying to think of, because, yes, thank you.
That makes sense. Other comments, questions? Alderperson Hanson.
The people who did not express interest, were there any objections, or do we just not hear back from them?
We didn't have any objections. There are people out there who already have some PVC, and, we don't know that until we do the pre-televising, which we pre-televise before we pipe burst to make sure. So some people said, hey, I know what my lateral for this duplex is newer, and if you're going to relay it to the right-of-way, well, then I've got PVC already. So, we put in the sewer years ago,
Yeah.
and so that was, a cast iron or a ductile iron, I should say. or clay or concrete, and now they've got PVC. So there was one particular case that was the case. The gentleman said, yeah, I know I've got PVC on the other side, so it doesn't make any sense. Nobody said, oh, I strongly object. Some people just didn't want to do it and want to have, some people have finished basements. They didn't want to deal with that, because we told them, if you have a finished basement, we're not going to go in there and refinish your basement. We'll repair the concrete, and that's as far as we'll take it, and then they didn't want to deal with that.
Alderperson Ledman.
And there has to be like a certain way that they can get in as well.
Yeah, and we had people that asked, hey, when your contractor shows up, can they come out and look at my house to make sure they can get the pipe in? So the one we were doing that I saw this morning is we were just coming in through a back window. The pipe is really flexible, but you're right, if they don't have a back window, can you take it and twist it and, no. And they have to, they fusion weld it outside, so it's one long pipe when they
Right.
start pulling it. So those are other instances, but, if we offered the program, if the lining, and again, I'll get numbers on that, but assuming the lining is a viable and a cheap alternative, which for our sewer mains, it's real cost effective, but then that would be another alternative that you could throw into the mix where they don't need to pull this big pipe. It's more of a, a flexible pipe, and then they expand it. So that would add to our toolbox, so to speak, of things we could do.
Alderperson Carpenter.
So if this all comes back and later on it goes forward, this money then is just going to be in the 2025,
Well, my assumption is you're going to put it in, present it. It's going to be in and present it to me, and then
Put
we'll,
in my draft budget already.
yeah.
and that's, I'm just saying, the funds would be,
Yeah, we
Is it
put
this-
it in as a draft because we knew that if it wasn't going anywhere, we would just pull it out before
Right.
it came to the council at the, budget workshop.
yeah, okay.
Scott.
I had to actually,
You were
I
on.
had actually, my budget's due Wednesday, so I had to put it in there, just to bill on it. So I mean, if the board chose not to do it, like Eric said, we just yank it out.
No, I definitely think we give it some life until I get rid of it when it comes to me, so. No, this is really, really good. And I think our best advertisers will be the people that have it done. There were so many, right, when we do that too, we'll do that as well. That'll be incredible. But I've been to a few events now where people actually brought it up and said, I participate in this program. It's great. Thanks for
This
doing it.
one.
No, or had stuff done.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the
Not this one, but I think whatever we did in the past year or so.
Sump pump?
The sump
I'm
pump,
hearing
yes.
about the sump pump program.
Sump pump one, yes. Very positive. Very, very positive. Alderperson Hanson.
And then the funding for this out of the storm sewer utility,
Sewage,
utility?
water, utility.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Let's do it.
Are we okay then if we kind of go forward? So you're looking for guidance on, I think, the other one as well, too. The ones outside of city project?
Yeah, so I would then we'd put a draft policy together, kind of discussing some of this stuff here. At that time, I'll bring the cost of the cured in place pipe based on talking to some of the local contractors, and then we kind of formalize it more into a
Great.
policy and bring it back.
All good? Mm-hmm. I'm good with that.
Yep.
That's great. So you're going to stick around after Andy's here, so we'll go talk to him and set your date up. Don't yes, Jonathan, you're next.
Can't wait.
Thank you. Item 4, consideration and possible action on DOT I-41 Southbridge Interchange Bridge concept.
Oh, yeah.
Eric or Scott?
Why not?
Scott.
So what I have in your packet tonight is the kind of a preliminary draft of what they're looking to do for the new interchange and bridge going across. As you recall, we had a state municipal agreement come before the board a few months back. We kind of brought it up that it would be coming forward as aesthetics to amend that state municipal agreement to participate in the cost. Roughly, it was about 30,000. I think it was split between the town of Lawrence and the city. Since I put this memo together, we just found out that throughout the corridor now, the DOT is now going to provide CSS money, which kind of aesthetics. Basically, what they're trying to do is a lot of communities to the south of us wanted some similar treatments that we saw going from Sharing Road to Lineville. So they have agreed to any federal funded type project that there will be contribution. So we may have very little, if any, contribution to the bridge. So what you see in your packet is the concept. It looks similar to Sharing Road, a bridge. One of the things it will not have, you'll see on the one side, it's got riprap underneath. It won't be riprap. That's more of a rural area. Actually, it'll be a paved slope. It won't have the retaining walls there because this is actually a bridge they're building in an area that's got a lot of poor soils. They're not building in retaining walls, so you see a concrete slope. So basically, I got to get back to the DOT by the first part of October. They're finalizing this bridge for bidding. So they want to make sure that our board and council is okay moving forward with the plan you see before you.
Thank you. Questions, I'm okay. Questions, comments? Alderperson Hanson?
Yeah, Scott, some of the overpasses have like artistic drawings underneath, but I think those are usually over local roads, not over the highway, right?
Some of those, like Lambeau Field.
Yeah, with
I
like
mean,
the
yeah,
Packer stuff.
that was actually just some of those communities. That's what they wanted when the widening from Sharing Road to Lineville occurred a decade ago. So that's what the community wanted as part of that project.
At our cost.
Yeah, it was, well,
Previously was the state.
it was previously, no, it was actually CSS money. So like Sharing Road Bridge, we didn't have any, funding on that because it's part of that CSS money, community sensitive design that they referred to.
Alderperson Carpenter?
So as I look at this drawing, you're saying that it's not going to be gravel, and it will be a paved or
Paved slope,
paved slope on both sides
yes.
and everything. And when you talk about that, there was a lot of, I don't know, in the state, some people not happy with dollars being spent so foolishly, is what they said, for making them ducks in Howard and everything else and all that stuff. They considered that was a waste of state tax dollars, but I see now they're coming around again. You know, I'm just saying, that was
Right,
a little
exactly.
it was a rift when that went on. at one
Yes.
time.
Scott?
So I just reiterate it, back up a little bit. If it was a state, 100% state funded project, in the statute, it does not allow for it. If it's a federally funded project like I-41 is, then they will allow for that money. In fact, I'm trying to work with the DOT on Main Avenue potentially because there's federally funds on there to see if we get some coverage on that as well. But my understanding is strictly, you got to delineate the federally versus state. State wouldn't allow it, federally funds would allow it.
Very good.
Yep, thank you.
Other questions or comments? What do you need from us here, Scott?
Just make a recommendation to council to approve the concept that you see beforehand.
I'll make a motion based on what you had just stated.
Second.
Motion by me, seconded by Alderperson Carpenter. Any additional discussion and/or comments? Seeing there are none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 5, consideration and possible action on city engineer parking and traffic recommendations. Eric?
Okay, so I've got just a couple items here. The first item is to consider minor parking restrictions or moving the crosswalk at 9th and Park. This is based on our discussion at the board on May 13th, 2024. So, this intersection was reviewed in detail by the engineering department previously, and it really didn't identify any major issues. I included an email from the police chief where he concurs that the intersection does not require additional improvements to safely cross. We did take a look at moving the crosswalk to the opposite side, to the south side of the intersection, but what happens is we end up hitting the driveway and then there's an inlet there. So we felt like the current location is the best. So we took a look at, based on the speed and the vision and whatnot, we're recommending just a minor modification by restricting parking 75 feet of the north of the Park Street curb line extended. So if you extend the curb line, you got the radius return, so you'd go 75 feet from that curb line extended. So this would impact about 2 stalls on each side. We're not looking to impact a lot of stalls because, as we saw when we were doing the speed studies, the parking does seem to be helping some of the speeds to the north. So our recommendation is to restrict parking 75 feet north of Park Street.
Very good. Thank you. Take it one at a time. Any comments on this? And that's what we had kind of talked about as well. So let's see how that goes, I think. Thank you. Next.
Okay, next is to consider, we had a request to consider pedestrian upgrades such as, and it was not specific, but such as a rapid rectangular flashing beacon or other improvements to the crosswalk I-41 on and off ramps at Shearing Road. And I included a picture of what it looks like if you're driving. This is would be northbound I-41 traffic turning on to Shearing. So the location does not meet our policy for That's a high-speed environment entering an urban environment where they may not be expecting pedestrians. Granted, there are plenty of gaps in traffic to cross, but the MUTCD, the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, does have an optional signage at multi-lane roundabouts for pedestrians, which I included, which we have that signage out here at the Claude Alloway. Please note that this is a Brown County jurisdiction, so staff is recommending we just go with the basic signs like we've been putting on, like we put on the Claude Alloway, pointing down to the crosswalk, just to draw the driver's attention to it. This would require approval from Brown County because it is their facility, but we would have to put up the signs because they're for pedestrians.
Thank you. Anything on that one? Very good. Next.
Okay, the next one is kind of a weird nuance. We have a request from a resident to either add a stop sign at West Fox Point or eliminate a stop sign at East Fox Point at Red Maple Road for consistency. I guess I'll just take you over there real quick. What happened years ago is this little street over here on the east was stubbed in, and at the time we were putting in stop signs at every single local street. We have not been doing that lately, so there's a stop sign here. A couple years ago we built Fox Point and we did not put any signage up there. So the person wanted to have consistency. Staff doesn't have a strong opinion about this. Our options, in our opinion, are we can, one, just eliminate the stop sign at East Fox Point Circle. Number two, we can leave as is. Or number three, we can convert the stop sign to a yield at East Fox Point and add another yield at West Fox Point. So I guess we're really just leaving it up to the board on what you'd like to see out there.
Well, good for you. All right, what do you guys want to do? We have 20 options. Alderperson Carpenter.
Eliminate the stop sign.
You're saying eliminate the stop sign, the one that's there right now, then there's no stop signs there.
No stop sign, no yield
Because it's been
signs.
working quite well with the one where there's no stop sign. I'm
That's-
assuming is why you're saying that.
Yep, there is no, yeah. That's a very,
The resident doesn't have a preference?
What does the resident want again? I'm sorry.
The resident wants consistency, either
Either
two
way.
stop signs
Either way.
or no stop.
Sure, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't see, that's another, again, not a well-traveled road. That used to be old Red Maple Road, which went all the way through, which doesn't go through no more and everything else.
If this was a new subdivision,
Yeah.
if we built east and west at the same time, we wouldn't have put the stop sign in at east.
Well, if that's the case, then,
Yeah.
We just wouldn't have.
yeah.
Yeah,
Is everyone okay with that then?
Yep.
Since they laid it on our laps, so let's do it. All right. Do you have that then?
Yep.
All right, next.
And then I'll send that forward to council, removing the stop sign.
Thank you.
Okay. Consider a four-way stop at Chicago and Ontario or other improvements for improved pedestrian safety in the summer when children are going to the park. Now, so for this location, and I can take you over there so you can visualize it as I talk. This location has pedestrian bump outs at the crosswalk. There is a curve to the east and that's part of, I think, the reason for the request. We did a speed review the last week of June, so after school was out, and 85% speed east of the curve is 29.3 miles an hour. So not exceptionally fast. A little above speed limit, that means 85% of the people are going 29.3 miles per hour or less. The recommended sight distance is 131 feet for a speed of 30 for a vehicle speed of 30 miles an hour. And the visibility at this location really from the inside is approximately 154 feet. So this doesn't meet really the warrant for a four-way stop. It's relatively safe other than, I mean, from a vision standpoint, pedestrians have opportunity to see. However, we thought maybe this is a good opportunity just to kind of restrict the feel of the area a little bit more by putting one of those yield in the center of the streets, because then you have the bump outs and now you put a sign in the center and you get that natural constriction and it'll draw attention to it. Plus the concern was for the summer, and that's when those signs go up.
All right, thank you. Sounds like a reasonable solution. Alderperson, Alderperson Carpenter.
100% agree, because we spent the money for the bump outs and
Yeah.
everything. And the design of the bump outs was, otherwise you would have put four-way stop signs back then. You know, am I correct?
Very good point.
I mean, we spent the money to do this, to create this a safe zone at that time. So I think what you're saying is very well, is a good way to go about it.
Good. Alderperson Hanson.
Yeah, Eric, just because my constituent was the one that brought it forward, can you just kind of explain a little more what the criteria is for the four-way stops?
Well, the four-way stop, there's a lot of different criteria, but generally you don't put it on a collector street and a local street. Now, you could say, well, there's some visibility concerns, but really from a vision standpoint, you do have adequate visibility and there is no crash history. So really, there's no reason. And, just to put stop signs in for the sake of stop signs have a negative response also, where sometimes you encourage speeding away from it because people are frustrated due to all the stop signs. The other big concern is, if you're on Merrill, you may not be, not Merrill, Chicago, thank you. You may not be, like if you're coming up and no one's ever at the other stop, you tend to slowly ignore the stop signs where you get stop sign abuse because you're not used to seeing. And so we really want to put stop signs where they're needed, or you've got high volume roadways, collector type streets, things like that.
Very good, thank you. Other questions or comments?
So,
Alderperson Ledman,
sorry, so staff's recommending just one of those pedestrian,
yield.
Yep, right in the center, because we think that'll help kind of even restrict that feel of that intersection, because now you got the bump out in and then you got the sign in the middle. And
yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Let's give it a try. Sounds good. Thank you. Is that everything?
Yep.
Oh, it sure looks like it. All right, thanks for all that. Let's go to item 6. Discuss city
We
engineer.
need a motion on
Oh,
that.
I'm sorry. Motion, people.
Make a motion to approve the staff's recommendations, and then for number 3, specifically to remove the stop sign.
Second.
We have a
At
motion by
Fox Point.
Alderperson Hanson, second by Alderperson Ledman. But yeah, the recommendations, like you said, all stand. All good? All right, additional questions, comments? Seeing there are none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 6, discuss city engineer recommendations on no action parking and traffic discussion items. Eric.
so we had a request to consider restrictions on 7th Street between Westwood and Helena. Under certain athletic events, cars are parked on both sides. And when I got the call, I took a look out there right away, and that's the picture that's attached. You can see clearly, it's kind of tight with cars on both sides. And it appears to be more in the spring when you've got, track and those type of events. So 7th Street is a 30-foot wide street face-to-face. Our policy for new streets is 32 feet for parking. With that being said, though, that has not been a driver to necessarily restrict parking on one side or even both sides if a street does not conform to our current policy. We're just using that for new streets. There are a lot of drives. You can see when you look down this, there's a lot of gaps in between vehicles because of driveways. So, most responsible drivers will be fairly patient, and I had no issues getting through here on the day that I went out. Because of that, we felt that really it wasn't a hazard and that we didn't want to restrict parking and just push it farther away. If the board would like this brought back, the one thing we would have to do probably, which we've done in the past, would be to send letters out to all the people and say, are you interested? And if so, what side of the street? So right now, we didn't feel it was a hazard. We're recommending no action.
Thank you. Questions or comments on that one? Alderperson
Yes,
Carpenter.
because I brought this to Eric, and I just drove it tonight before I came here, and I drove the day that the person complained. We could send the letters out, but just the residents are parking on both sides of the road right now. So my point is,
They like to have parking.
I'm assuming that.
Yeah, you're gonna get that.
I shouldn't
Yeah.
assume things, but just as I went through it tonight, not closer up to the school, but back a little bit farther, there was quite a few cars parked on both sides of the road. So I think that'll turn into quite a discussion which side you're going to want and everything
Yes.
else. So as much as I know it can get, sporting events come on, that area just gets packed. It's just what it is. And it's unfortunate. As long as we, as a city, feel safe that the fire and rescue can get through there, that's my concern. Would be only if something went wrong, that somebody doesn't come after the city saying, hey, this has been brought up and now.
And they're on the committee, so go ahead.
Yeah, the thing I would say is I think they do, do some restrictions for the big events like And when I say big, I'll say big for, like football, because in that type of event, everybody kind of arrives similar and departs similar. If you're familiar with a track event, because my kid ran track, my son did, you kind of arrive when you think they're going to be going, and then you don't necessarily stick around for the same thing. So people are kind of coming and going. You don't have this mad rush of people coming and mad rush of people going, which helps the situation.
Are you downplaying track? Because I'm
No.
a former track person,
No.
so you have to be very careful.
No, I am not downplaying track or cross country.
Alderperson Carpenter, you okay with that?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Be okay with
And
it.
I agree with that as well, too, yep. Other comments, questions? Okay, next.
Okay, so the next one, and there's another item kind of relates to the same complaint that came through, but we did have a parking restriction on Lewis near Michigan Street from Alderperson Hanson, and it wasn't from me, it was from a resident. And so I included a photo of what the resident included in your packet, so you can see what was the complaint, driving the complaint. So, and again, it's to restrict parking on one side or near the intersection of Michigan. Lewis Street is 32 feet wide, face-to-face. We allow parking on both sides. I know, there's been some concerns periodically by some of the neighbors in here about the amount of parking periodically. We feel like these are two local streets, and again, we don't feel the need to restrict the parking. So our recommendation is no action. I know there'll be times in at the De Pere Cultural Center, you may have bigger events where there'll be parking and a lot of things going on. But really, I guess, and this relates farther down to the crosswalk request at Michigan and Lewis. It's really no different than what you see if you take a look at parking north of Lambeau Field in Green Bay. For those of you who have gone to a Packer game, I go to them and I park up there. They are all local streets. They don't have parking restrictions near the intersections for visibility. They don't have crosswalks, but 8, 9, 10 times a year that neighborhood is parked so full, there are people everywhere, but they don't have issues. Because these are local streets, the speeds are slow, we don't feel like the parking in the streets is an issue. And then we'll talk a little bit more about the crosswalk, but that's kind of a pretty decent comparison in my mind because of the amount of activity you have in the short amount of time. So we didn't feel like there was any hazard out there.
Scott?
And the other thing to add to it, ever since we put a no left turn onto Lewis to go eastbound, your traffic going eastbound is much less in that area, as you see in the photo, versus it was before Melva's went in, because people would come off of Broadway and they're constantly turning left. And you had a lot of people, wanted to take that to go eastbound to Erie Street, so that's greatly diminished.
I'm also noticing less cars on the street itself. I come by here every day, so I think the employees, more of them are parking in the lot by the apartment on Wisconsin Street. So I haven't seen it really that clogged up in the last, occasionally, but very rarely. Alderperson Hanson.
Yeah, and just to kind of elaborate a little more on the residents' request. So like if you see where the black Chevy is right now, he's saying that if you're going southbound on Michigan, you can't really see around the black Chevy to see the eastbound oncoming traffic. I am wondering though about, he also has said sometimes, they are parked pretty close to the stop sign. Is there a setback that we require from the stop sign normally, or?
15 feet.
I think there is, right?
Yeah, and I don't recall what the exact distance is
Scott?
based on the rules.
I believe it's 15 feet from the edge of the radius that you can't
I
park.
think you're right. I think you're right.
Did you paint the curb?
No, we're not gonna start painting curbs.
But, again, I take a look at how people park in other big events that go on where they park in residential areas. You can't see exactly perfect, but you nudge out a little ways. It's not like you're talking you got a collector street and you got cars whizzing by, and there just is no accident history, and I don't think we didn't feel it was a hazard.
And then in terms of the difference with Park, would that be volume of traffic in that too?
Yeah, and that's why Park is a collector street, and because of that, it kind of fits into the criteria of painting a crosswalk. Right now, we're not painting crosswalks on local
No, I meant
streets.
taking out like 1 or 2 parking stalls.
Yeah, it's because, well, that's more so for the crosswalk, not for the cars pulling out. That was for visibility specifically for the crosswalk.
Other questions or comments? Okay.
All right, next item, we had a request for rapid rectangular flashing beacons at the Claude Alley roundabout. Currently, it really doesn't meet our criteria for putting RFBs in. The cost of the installation would be approximately, because you'd have to have them on all the legs, would be around $180,000. Because these are pretty expensive right now. But the future traffic at the roundabout will likely decrease when the Southern Bridge happens, which is getting closer. I know I personally and several of the other team members felt that there's pretty good adherence to yielding to pedestrians at the roundabout. I mean, sometimes people are nervous and they don't want to cross there. I cross there periodically. If you just look where the driver's coming from and you establish that eye contact and you're right at the crosswalks and maybe you got to wait, they'll yield most of the time. And again, we can never get 100% concurrence with yielding no matter what we do for crosswalks, RFBs, which we've been hearing concerns about, the Hawk system in Alloway, even a stop and go light with traffic signals. So, and it does, this roundabout does have the pedestrian signs that we talked about installing at the I-41 Shering Road, so we felt that things are okay out there.
All right. Questions or comments on that? All right, next.
Okay, so this pertains back to the item we just talked about. I just put it under pedestrian versus versus parking restrictions. We had a request to consider crosswalks at Michigan and Lewis, and it was from the photo above. Both of these are local streets, so it doesn't fit our criteria for where we're putting in crosswalks, so we don't feel, and we're not recommending any action.
Very good, thank you.
Can you just go over the criteria again? Is it
It's based on volume, so it has to be like a collector arterial, and then the number of pedestrians crossing up to 20. You need 20 in the peak hour wherever that could occur. So these are not collector streets or local streets, very low volume. The only other threshold is if we did have a safe routes to school, we would look at that differently, but this is not a safe routes to school.
Thank you. All right. Next.
We had a request for reduced speed sign for southbound Lawrence Drive near Fortune intersection. There was concern about tailgating. And I think, you know, when you look at it now at that location, the other thing you had going on in the past is you were going from 2 lanes here down to 1 lane. So that might add to it. People, you know, upset that they couldn't get around the car, but that will all change that part of it because we're going to have 1 lane in each direction on Lawrence when this is reconstructed here in the near future. So, you know, the 25-mile-per-hour sign is posted. I don't have the sign layers on, but it's posted right in here. And again, we'll only have 1 lane, so we felt like we didn't need to put a reduced speed ahead sign.
Thank you. Anyone on that one? All right, next.
Okay, and then we had a request to allow ATVs, UTVs on city streets. We talked about it with the parking and traffic team, and they weren't in support of allowing ATVs, UTVs on city streets due to the urban and higher speeds and amount of traffic, and some of our roadways are, you know, 35 miles an hour with heavy truck use, so they didn't feel like we should allow ATVs, UTVs.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
Well,
We have an answer, obviously, so that's what
I
we're,
know your answer, and I kind of sent a message out to the person that what's going to happen here, but we have surrounding communities, and I understand what you're saying, that allow it, and we have neighborhoods that connect right to these surrounding communities, and that's why people requested it.
I think the other thing too was because they were looking possibly just to target a certain area where it was.
Yeah, it was. It was.
And then I'm just referencing that chief talked about that too, which would be very difficult to enforce. That was another issue you guys had as well, right?
Yeah.
Well, the only thing I will say to that, it'd be just like a truck route. I'm sorry to say that. You can put up signs and create it that this is UTV. So I disagree with that portion of the discussion. That's all. I'm not going to get upset about it. I'm just saying we have newer subdivisions that on Ledgeview in town of Lawrence allow UTVs in areas, and these people, if they wish to, could take the UTVs and hit on those roads. But if they want it, they can bring it back more or some other time or whatever, I guess.
Or move to the towns. That's an option too. Any other comments, discussion? All right, was that all of them?
The only other thing I just wanted to mention, it's under
Oh.
other, is we had talked in one of the meetings about the bus and vehicle concerns, the bus and vehicle and pedestrian interaction at Helena. And we had indicated that we would do an aerial flyover and just to see what was going on, if you remember that discussion. And we did it. I don't have the ability to post it where you have access to the to our internal systems because it's a big file because they were up there for like a half an hour, 40 minutes. But there were no concerns. If someone would like it, send me an email. I'll work with IT to get a Dropbox or something set up so you can grab it.
All right. Is that everything then?
Yes.
Okay.
We got some future items.
Those I just keep on there so you know I haven't forgot about them. Because some of
I
them
did have
take.
one question.
I did see that as well too, so I thought when I said, are we done?
Sorry.
Other person, Hanson?
The neighborhood watch sign, I had some conversations with the police chief and the community service, community police officers, and it sounds like that's a police-led program though, isn't it?
I think there was some discussion on, yes, it's police-led, but they asked the parking and traffic team to look at it. For instance, how many signs would go up in a particular area? I mean, can a group have 1, 2, 5? You know, the cost of the signs, all those kinds of things. That's the context
Okay.
we were looking at it, but it's not. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. And I know we approved a new sign design. I haven't seen any of those up yet, so I guess it's still kind of in the works. But and I know part of what they're also looking at is removing some of the signs that are for neighborhoods that are inactive. So
Yeah, that's some of the stuff we're looking at.
All right, it's on your list. Other questions or comments? All right, thank you. That brings us up to future agenda items. Does anyone have anything? All right, up next, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by me, second by Alderperson Ledmana. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We're officially adjourned.